Defender. The public defender is a public servant employed by the community and responsible for giving legal aid without cost to any person who seeks it and is financially unable to employ private counsel. It is his duty to defend those accused of crime until the issue is decided in a court of law. All of us have known moments when the whole world seemed turned against us. This is the story of a boy caught in such a moment of despair.
Boy, you really clobbered him one.
Yeah. He's crazy. He's out colder than a deep freeze. See if you can bring him around. Hey, Slugger, the fight's over. It's time to go home. What's the matter?
I don't like the way he looks, Frankie.
You don't think there's anything? I think he's dead.
You're here on a pretty serious charge, Frankie.
But I didn't kill him, Mr. Matthews. I mean, it was just an accident. An awful accident.
It says that you struck him.
I know. But it was his head hitting the pavement that did the damage, not the punch.
Well, that's possible, but it still has to be proven.
But I had to hit him, Mr. Matthews. He was coming at me with that piece of pipe. I didn't want him to die. I don't want anybody to die. But I had to protect myself.
I agree. But if I'm going to help you, I have to know the truth. I want you to be honest with me, Frankie.
But that's what I'm doing, sir.
I want to believe you, Frankie. But it's not going to be easy to convince a jury that you were protecting yourself from unprovoked attack by someone like Paul Harris.
But it happens to be the truth, Mr. Matthews.
If it is, we'll be all right.
Listen, Mr. Matthews, I swear to you, he started.
Why?
I don't know why. For no reason at all. He's the last guy you'd expect to do something like that. He was what we called a sissy, Mr. Matthews, a mama's boy.
A mama's boy?
But I liked him, Mr. Matthews. He wasn't a bad kid. I didn't want him to die. Mama's boy or not, I didn't want him to die.
Mama's boy. Mama's boy. The only way to strengthen my client's case was to unravel the mystery of why a mama's boy would start a fight to the death. The first thing was to interview Mama. Mrs. Harris, I'm Bart Matthews, the public defender.
Won't you sit down, Mr. Matthews?
Thank you. I'm terribly sorry about the death of your son.
Please, Mr. Matthews, I'd rather not talk about it.
I'm sorry, but I have to. You see, I'm defending another boy.
A young hoodlum. A murderer. And you're defending him.
Everyone has the right to be defended in a court of law.
But he killed my son. My Paul. Don't you understand? He killed my only child.
I understand, Mrs. Harris. I know what a terrible blow this has been to you.
I loved him so. He was all I had left in the world.
Mrs. Harris, tell me something about your boy.
He was the finest, most wonderful boy who ever lived.
Did he ever get into any trouble with any of the other boys?
No. He was so well-mannered. Too good for the others. That's why they resented him.
Then there was some difficulty.
No. Paul never did anything wrong. It was those other boys, always trying to get him into trouble.
What kind of trouble?
It's never his fault when things went wrong. He was a good boy. I protected him. I always protected him.
You always protected him. Do you think that was the wisest thing you could have done, Mrs. Harris?
Well, I was his mother, wasn't I?
Yes, you were his mother.
Well, then, of course, I had to protect him. That's what a mother's for, isn't she? To stand by her son when he needs her? Like the first time those boys tried to get him into trouble.
Strike two!
Out of the way, Frankie. One more and you retire to side.
Hey, look who showed up for pitching practice. Christy Matheson himself.
Hi, Frankie. Hi, fellas.
Hiya, Christy, old boy. How's the arm today?
Arm? Oh, fine. It's fine, I guess, Art. Think you could throw a couple of strikes?
He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
He couldn't even hit if it was 10 feet away from him.
Could you, Percy?
Don't call me that.
Hey, cut it out. Okay, Frankie.
Come on.
You want to try throwing one, Paul?
I don't think I better.
Sure, go ahead. How you ever gonna learn?
I'm not much of a ball player.
Oh, sure you are. You just need practice, that's all. Come on, try tossing.
Get a load of the windup.
I told you that guy couldn't hit the side of a barn.
Hey,
Police!
let's get out of here.
Police! You'll take this, every one of you. You hoodlums. Officer, look at my window. They smashed it.
My son, Paul, arrested. I almost died until that taxi could get me down to the police station.
Were the other boys there as well?
Of course, they arrested all of them. Those ruffians, pushing Paul into a thing like that.
Did he blame the other boys for what had happened?
You didn't know my Paul. He said it was all his fault.
And of course you didn't agree with that, did you, Mrs. Harris?
Certainly not. I made it perfectly clear to that police lieutenant that none of this was to be considered Paul's fault. Those boys shouldn't be allowed to associate with my son. Paul tried to stop me. He ran across the room to where the other boys were watching.
And what did you do then, Mrs. Harris?
I did the only thing I could do under the circumstances. I paid for all the damage they did to the building. I wanted to show Paul that he need feel no obligation to anyone. If that window hadn't been paid for, the lieutenant told me they'd keep Paul in jail overnight. That would have been better, Mr. Matthews.
I'm not sure, Mrs. Harris. I'm not sure.
You don't know how a mother feels. A real mother would rather go to jail herself than to see her son suffer.
Was there any other time you felt you had to protect him?
Yes. That same gang of boys. I'll never forget the time they wanted him to go hunting.
Are you guys sure you got everything there now?
Yep. Sleeping bag, axes, shovels, and the water bucket.
Hey, Frankie, what about Fancy Pants? You think his mother really let him go?
Hey, lay off the names, pal. He isn't so bad. Besides, his father died when he was just a kid. His old lady's all he's got.
Hi, fellas.
Hey, Paul. Hey, you're able to swing with the old lady, huh?
Well, sure, that's why I'm down here. She said I could go. Hey, we going in that car?
Sure, we're big shots.
Yeah, my old man's taking the bus to work in the morning.
Here. Ever hold one of these in your hands?
Gee, sure is a beauty.
It ought to be. Set my old man back plenty.
Doesn't your dad worry about your handling guns?
My old man? He's been taking me on hunting trips since I was 8 years old.
Must be wonderful to have a father to do all those things with.
God, ain't so hot, though, when he takes a swipe at you for not raking the lawn. Oh, that reminds me, you got a sleeping bag?
No. Will I need one?
Did you ever try sleeping on the ground without one?
No. That's all right, Paul. You take mine. I'll use my old man.
Oh, thanks. Gee, I can't wait to go. When do we start?
About an hour. Hey, you better change those clothes.
An hour?
Well, come on, get going. It's a couple hours ride.
Okay, I'll be back. Where do you think he's going, a junior prom or something?
He's got to look pretty for his old lady.
Yeah.
Is that you, dear?